Hey, this is Todd. So I've been asked what I did with my property when I lost it to a disaster. And I know there's a bunch of fires going on. There's always mudslides. There's always floods and other things. So I'm going to give you what I found to be helpful when I ended up losing my house in a hurricane. So here's kind of the first steps. I was in Florida when the hurricanes went through, and long and short of it was my neighbor had let me know the conditions of the property. So the very first thing you need to do, and do it immediately, is contact your insurance company. So here's my story. This is the neighborhood where my house was, and my neighbor sent me a screenshot, and I'm highlighting here the fence in the backyard. Here's his boat on the left, and here was the fence. And what he told me was that in his front yard, the F-150 that was in his driveway had water up to the door handle. So when I looked at that, here's that same boat the next day. It was very clear that my house, and this is my backyard, my house had been completely flooded, right? So here's the water line on the outside of my house, and here is the water line inside. So there's about 4 feet of water damage. So before I even saw the property, I called the insurance company the evening of the flood and filed a claim online to get in line, because I just assumed there'd be 100,000 houses all over the place that were flooded, and I wanted to get in line as far as the damage is concerned. So very first one, contact the insurance company before you do anything else. Now, in addition to that, there is some disaster relief. You want to go on to the FEMA webpage as well, but you got to be careful here, because some of the clauses when you accept money from FEMA, you got to read through all of the paperwork to see what they actually are telling you, because there's a lot of information about there. Like, if you accept this money, that's all you're going to get. You're basically saying, hey, give me my $350 and you're not eligible for any additional money. But they will give you some housing funds, grants, and potentially even some loans. So you want to go to the disasterassistance.gov or call the helpline number and gather more information. And speed matters. When you're putting this together, do you also want to reach out to your mortgage lender ASAP? So what people don't realize is, just because the house isn't standing any longer doesn't mean you don't owe the monthly payment. So as you're displaced and trying to figure out what to do and where to sleep and everything else, your mortgage is still going to be due by the 15th of the month. So you want to reach out immediately and talk to them a little bit more about forbearance and putting a pause on your mortgage payments, or some form of a loan modification. And I strongly encourage going to the consumerfinance.gov webpage, and you can click on the what is forbearance and how that works and that information, because I think it's going to be important for you to understand some of those details. And what they can do is they can literally put a 6-month pause or so on your mortgage payments as you're trying to figure out what to do, which is going to be valuable. Now, keep record of everything that you do. Buy a notebook if you need it. Set up, record your conversations, take notes, put them in a contact management system, do something. You want who you spoke with, when you spoke to them, what you expect to happen next, and when you expect it to happen. So I time-stamped and dated everything and got names and email addresses and everything of the people that I worked with. My insurance company, Mitchell Insurance Company in Florida, sucked. They were terrible. However, the Wright Flood Insurance Company was fantastic. They did a great job. In Florida, I had homeowners, I had hurricane, and I had flood. The hurricane dude came out and said there is no damage due to a hurricane. I just showed you the damage. He said, nope, it's all flood. I'm not going to cover anything. Flood insurance was great, and that gal helped out tremendously. And because I was Johnny on the spot getting things updated right away, she did a really good job working with me in order to help me get a claim filed. All right. So as you're going through the process, in addition to that, you need to evaluate and plan what you're going to do next. And honestly, what this means is are you going to rebuild, or are you going to relocate? So in a lot of places, like for me, I really had to decide. And here was a key factor for me on if I'm going to rebuild or relocate it, is I went to all the different Facebook groups that are out there. Nextdoor was actually really helpful as well to help find some people. There are a lot of scammers who immediately jump in there and say, hey, I'm going to go help you. So you want to be careful. You want to vet people when it comes to licensed contractors, which I think are really important when you're going to get any work done. But you can find some good resources, and you can also find some people that you want to stay away from. The nice thing about Nextdoor is it's basically people that are in the community. I found a guy that, like I had a lawn care guy, they took all the furniture out and put it on the curb so it could be picked up. I found a local handyman dude to at least go in and clear my property out. City council and the city pages are good. And honestly, a local realtor. There was a guy, I just looked. He had a property down the street listed for sale. And I called him up, and the guy was fantastic. Did a really good job in providing me lots of good information and had lots of good contacts. So, real estate agents, what's funny is I looked up 3 or 4 different realtors, just curious to know what information I had. And the guy that was just down the street was by far the most valuable and most knowledgeable and most helpful. So finding somebody who is local to that area, not the biggest realtor that does the most business necessarily, but somebody that is right there in that neighborhood matters a lot when it comes, because they've just got the local contacts. They know the city councilman. They know that the handymans, they know when trash pickup is, they know, that kind of what roads are open and so forth. So they are a very good resource for you. Now, there is a FEMA 50-50 rule that had a lot to do with my property because it was a flood. So it's going to be different with the fires in certain areas, but you want to understand where your FEMA guidelines are because it matters quite a bit. So what this is, and I'll walk through the details of it, is basically, as this states here, it prohibits any improvements to a structure that exceed 50% of its market value. And that is unless the entire structure is brought into full compliance with the current flood regulations. And you're going to want to check this out on FEMA.gov. Here's what happened in my situation, similar numbers to something like this. So my property was on the water with a dock on the intercoastal, 5-minute walk to the beach on the other side, right? So I was on the intercoastal side. Well, let's say the total value was $1.2 million, and the structure, the actual house itself, had a value of $200. Now I've rounded these things and made them pretty clean and easy. Sadly, my numbers weren't even this good, but that would mean if the house had a $200,000 value, even though the taxable assessed value was $1.2 million, that means my entire budget to rebuild the house is going to be $100,000, 50% of the value of the structure. Well, my house was built in 1956. This is this is a photograph of the inside of the property. What I had done is because of the wires, it was a 2-wire system wrapped. It was an aluminum wire that was wrapped in cloth. There was no ground wire to the whole house because it was built in 1956. And so my thought was, hey, this is great. I'm going to have to rebuild the entire house. And I'm going to have to rewire the whole thing anyways. And I'll probably redo the HVAC system when I get in there. You can see the structure itself was built really well and was sound. It's concrete walls all the way around. It's terrazzo floors. It's fairly indestructible. However, that 50-50 rule killed me because what it told me is I have $100,000 to redo the entire property unless I level it and bring it 11 feet in the air, which means you drive up to the property and have to walk up a flight of stairs 11 feet high to get into the property. And then I could spend all the money I wanted because it's now considered FEMA flood proof. So what that did for me is it made the decision, unfortunately, fairly clear that I was in the position I had to just sell it. I couldn't keep the property. But that's how things ended up working for me. So what was most important and what I'm sharing in this video for you is the recap of what to do and how to do it. So when you do this, when you lose your house, number one, contact the insurance company immediately, because you're going to be stuck in line if you don't do that. After you do that, you want to basically reach out and figure out what other options that you have as far as where you can stay, what you can do, and are there funds available to you. Then you want to contact the mortgage lender and talk to them about some type of leniency as far as the payments are concerned. You just lost your house. You don't need to lose your credit profile as well. And they're going to be working with you, but they'll work with you best if you contact them first and take the initiative on it. Also check in with the consumerfinance.gov, which is the CFPB, and understand your regulations. Then keep records of everything that you're doing, including times, dates, names of people you talk to, and figure out what your plan is from there. So good luck. I know this sucks. Hopefully this helps a little bit. If there's anything more that I can do to help you, please feel free to reach out and let me know.